Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Tooth Sleuth podcast. On today's episode, I couldn't be more excited to welcome my friend, Shouvik Ponnusamy. I know him as Dr. Samy, and many of you in the industry probably do as well. Dr. Samy is an innovator, a thought leader in the dental implant industry. He's innovating in the dental implant space, and particularly, which you all know, this gets me excited, in the full arch dental implant niche on both the doctor and the patient side of the equation. Yes, you heard that right. He's the founder and CEO of the startup company Toothsome. And this is a tech-enabled platform that connects patients seeking dental implants with expert dental implant providers with transparency and peace of mind. He's also a board-certified oral and maxillofacial surgeon and now has co-authored 5 novel surgical techniques. We're going to talk about those for sure. And he has co-written chapters in 3 dental implantology textbooks. Dr. Samy, welcome.
Hey, Greg, thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me on, and it's an honor to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
And I mean, come on now. All of those accolades already. And I've met your wife. Like, so when is their time? Like, does she still like you? Does she actually see you still? Come on now. So let's start at the beginning, right? So let's talk about co-authoring 5 novel surgical techniques. Let's jump into the clinical. Even though this is the business side of dentistry, I've got to hear, or at least give me like 1 or 2 of these surgical techniques because I want to learn. I always love the surgical as well as the business side. So hit me with it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of my passions. Is as far as the dental implant world goes, is really on one side, it's advancing the profession from a surgical standpoint, just because my clinical background's in oral surgery, and then of course, on the patient side, which we can get into, but on the surgical side, I really love really sharing with the world new surgical techniques and protocols and things like that. And that's kind of been the piece of my practice that I do enjoy, kind of keeping me in on the academic and research side. So we can maybe talk about 1 or 2 of them here, which are one of them, for example, has to do with an advanced dental implant technique. It's getting more popular, which is zygomatic implants. And these are basically dental implants that are used in situations where there's not enough bone on patients on their upper jaw. And this can be due to just years of not having teeth. It could just be due to anatomical purposes or even like lots of infection, things like that. And, what I noticed is that although this technique has been around for a long time, I noticed in my training, in my residency, that a lot of these zygomatic implants that were being done, they weren't being done in ways that were restoratively favorable, meaning that the teeth that would end up on top of these implants were not as ideal. And that basically was the inspiration for authoring a paper with one of my mentors, Dr. Michael Maloro at University of Illinois, Chicago, where we basically set out to describe a protocol or a workflow with zygomatic implants and thinking of them in a way where you may have heard of the term crown down implant treatment planning, which is kind of an idea of reverse engineering, where you want the tooth to be, and then putting your implant there. Don't just look at the bone and put in the implant.
Sure, start with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Exactly. So basically, we applied that same principle, but on a larger scale with zygomatic implants. And I won't go too much into it, but basically, we're looking at the face back. So we kind of adopted, instead of crown down, it's, face back. And there's various surgical principles in there of really challenging the surgeon to be able to place zygomatic implants in a more restoratively favorable way.
Yeah, you're talking about those good old cheekbone implants, and that's really an advanced technique, and I appreciate you sharing that for sure. All right, let's get out of the clinical. I talk about the business side of dentistry. No offense to all those that are clinical nerds. I know you're a dental nerd. I am too. So, I've told you, we've shared stories. I've been in over 1,000 actual operatory of full arch surgery, so I dig that stuff too. But what I really want to start to talk a little bit more about is, you and your passion, right? So your passion really is about, if you're in full arch, right, and starting this app, right, this application of Toothsome, and you and I met through LinkedIn actually, and talking about Toothsome, and I think it's Full Arch Pros or something. I started watching some of the content you were putting out. And I'm like, wait a second, he's kind of like me. He loves to give away free content. And then I started watching some of the work that you started doing with Toothsome, which was all about, for me and my perspective, it's about connecting patients with clinicians and really being able to, I always talk about delivering those brand new smiles, right? I mean, these are life-changing procedures for patients. And that passion comes through when anyone talks to you. And so tell me a little bit more about the passion that you have around Full Arch.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to a clinical suite of all the things that oral surgeons do and dentists do in general, full arch dental implant rehabilitation, to me it's the most rewarding procedure that I do. And hearing the stories of these patients, for some of these patients, they have been struggling with their teeth, with their smile for just decades. And there was one patient in particular who I did do zygomatic implants on. It was a tough case, and it was one of these cases where this particular patient had been denied or just said no to, I think it was 6 or 7. I don't remember how many other doctors were like, no, yeah, you don't have enough bone, we can't do it. And this patient actually flew across the country to see me, and we did the surgery, zygomatic implants, pterygoid implants. It was a complex case, and I was very pleased with it. And what was amazing is what happened after. So, now we kind of had a rapport, and the patient was already in her teeth, and she's very happy. And she shared this story with me about how long it took her to find someone who could do her case, and how difficult it was for her to find out pricing for what this cost. All these different, so she shared with me this long journey, and I thought to myself, I do teaching, I teach full arch implants. I said, I know a lot of doctors across the country that could have helped you, and I'm thinking this patient shouldn't have had to go through years and years of struggle of finding a doctor who could do her treatment. And that was the inspiration behind building Toothsome, because really the concept is that there are a lot of supply. I mean, there's a lot of supply, a lot of full arch doctors out there that do excellent work. And there's a lot of demand, as we know, and we can get into some of the numbers here. But the problem is that full arch implants is a type of nuanced procedure. It's kind of niche. Dental implants in general, patients kind of have an idea, dental implants, like I can get new teeth. But when you get into the nitty gritty of actually finding out if you're a candidate, finding out how much it costs, finding out if the doctor, is qualified and has the credentials to do this procedure, that's where these patients are oftentimes in the dark and kind of go through this long and arduous journey to actually find the right practice and the right doctor for them. And that's where I really want to innovate on. And it's amazing because on the provider side, on the doctor side, I mean, there is so much innovation happening, right? With digital dentistry, I mean, all the 3D printing, the advanced implant designs, the photogrammetry. I mean, it is just amazing what's happening out there on the clinical front. And I think it's great, and that's enabled so many dentists to be able to pick up this skill. But when I look at the other side, I look at the demand side of things, the patient side, when it comes to finding a dental implant provider, we haven't seen any innovation other than Google, right? Which has been around, I mean, since the 90s, right? I mean, yeah, we have some Google reviews, there's Facebook ads and whatnot, but who's innovating for these poor patients, right? I mean, they deserve information too. So that's what I set out to do, is essentially we're creating a platform that allows patients to be able to search for a full arch implant provider in their geographic area, view their credentials, read their reviews, view the bundled pricing transparently, being able to see that, and then requesting to schedule a consultation. And on the dentist side, they're getting a patient who already has intent. They understand what this treatment is, otherwise they wouldn't have been looking for it. They see the price, we get them financially qualified, and then that consultation is so much further down the, so to speak, sales funnel than a cold lead, so to speak. So we want our full arch docs to really focus on what they do best, which is full arch dentistry, and not have to worry so much about some of the sales and the marketing side. We want to handle a lot of that for them.
Yeah, you bring up a number of good points, and when you're talking about the clinical side, right? So many of the advantages and advances in clinical dentistry. It For me, I've been in dental for 17 years now, and I've been focused on the full arch space for 10. And it's not so much that the advances are coming quickly; they're coming exponentially, right? It seems like it's like this momentum, this avalanche of a snowball coming downhill. And it seems like, you know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it was all about, the in-office labs for full arch clinics was all about, ooh, bring a mill in. Ooh, it's milling in office. That's amazing. That's next level. Now it's all about 3D printing. And how are the materials? Can you 3D print a material that's good enough, strong enough, long-lasting enough, and economical for the practices once they get to a certain size? They have the durability. Can you 3D print them? Right, as an option other than milling. I mean, milling's still a really big part of many of the in-office labs that happen for full arch clinics. And so the photogrammetry now, I mean, there's so many innovations, right? And now you have things like OptiSplint there's so many innovations that happen so quickly just to keep up with it, right? The intraoral scanning market. I mean, if you looked 5 years ago, there were 3 on the market. Now there's like 30 on the market, and it's stratified in not only like the premium and the value segment, but now there's like a discount segment if you just want to capture, not for full arch, but you just want to capture some records and be able to send that over. And I mean, it's incredible. But what you're talking about at the end there, which I think is incredibly important, the transparency of the pricing. And you're talking about the bundled pricing, which is what many patients will get when they come in for the consultation into a clinic, into a practice, and they get that all in price, right? But what they're seeing through digital media, right? Google, as you're sharing, right? Most platforms, whether it's Facebook, any of the meta, what they're really seeing is the competitive nature of trying to grab the attention of a patient or a shopper, if you will. And it's all about the, starting as low as, and then but wait a second, that's not really for a final. That gets you into a surgical temp. Well, what does that do for me, right? And then it's everything else that's on top. And well, does that include bone grafting? Does that include the extraction? Does it just to try to capture the attention of the patient? So trying to find that true out the door, all in price is very challenging and problematic. And I work with full arch clinics, so I know on the marketing side what's happening. And what you're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, with Toothsome is to really peel back all of those layers and say, on the provider side, what are you willing to do this procedure for a straightforward all-in case, right? Maybe not the specialized zygomatic cases or whatever the case may be. And then on the patient side saying, if you're a straightforward case, this is a provider who we've vetted who does good work in your area who will do it for this price, and playing matchmaker. Do I have that right?
100%. Yeah. And there's a couple of points that you could hit on there for sure. And one of them is this kind of, this concept of kind of bait and switch, where like listing like a really low price, but in the fine print, it's like, well, actually that's just, for like your temporary teeth or something like that. So there's that transparency piece of it, where the traditional kind of marketing, dogma that is taught, in these conferences out there is that sell the value, sell the outcome, get them in the door, right? Have a marketing company get hundreds and hundreds of leads, and then maybe, one of them will convert. And the reason why the conversion is so low is that we're just any little kind of inkling of interest, we're bringing in the door, right? And we're doing these doctor consultations. And then after spending all this time and effort on them, we then reveal, the price, right? But the reality is that a lot of these leads or a lot of these patients coming in, they may not be full arch candidates, right? Not only from a clinical side, but even from a financial side. They may be an overdenture case or even a complete denture case. But what we're advocating for is that if the patients knew the price up front, they wouldn't come in to see a full arch consultation, right? So we believe in don't waste that patient's time, or don't waste the doctor's time. If they're kind of an overdenture patient or a complete denture patient, great, let's have a consultation about that. But we don't want, any surprises. So that's one piece of it. The second piece of it is when it comes to price bundling. So we want to be able to provide one fixed price, and it's really going to be two different possibilities: a simple case and a complex case. So, a simple case, kind of all on for your traditional surgery, versus, let's say this is like a revision case, or maybe the patient has a lot of it.
Careful with using that phrase; it's trademarked. Just saying.
Good point. Maybe I'll say, let me go back for a second. You're right. Yeah. Thank you.
I just had to say that. I come from the manufacturing side, and we like to have fun with that one. So you can go ahead. You can use that phrase. It's all right. They'll love the fact that you used it. I'll reach out
I can
to them.
kind
I'll tag
of
them
go back
in
to that
socials.
point.
It's all good.
So when it comes to price bundling, right? Because bundling of the price is very important, because patients, they don't want to see a long list of dental codes, right? All the different individual extractions, bone grafts, dental implants. They just see all this jargon that looks like a different language, and it looks like they're being nickel and dimed for all these different parts. So what we like are bundled pricing. One option is a fixed option for a simple kind of all on X, basic type of case, or you could have a more advanced, type of surgery, perhaps involving some more advanced techniques like zygomatic implants, or maybe it's a revision type of case where there's more implant removal. So a full arch doctor could have two prices on their profile on Toothsome: a simple price and a complex price. And that just makes it so much easier for the patient to be able to see one number, this is what it is, and it's all encompassing. They're not going to be then charged more money for the anesthesia or more money for the bone grafting. So that bundling of price is important. And the last piece is really the most important one, in my opinion, which is trust, right? So going back to the doctors that are actually going to be on Toothsome, I don't think it's fair for patients to have to understand whether or not the doctor that they're seeing is qualified to do the procedure, right? The patient should, assume that that's the case. But the reality is that, doctors that are doing full arch implant treatment, a lot of them have gotten their training somehow outside of dental school, right? So simply just by being a dentist doesn't automatically assume or assume the skill set that they're full arch doctors. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be transparently showcasing various credentials. Perhaps they're a diplomat of the American Board of Oral Implantology. Perhaps they're a prosthodontist. Perhaps they took implant pathway. Whatever it is, we want to showcase that, because not only does that instill trust, but it's now allowing the patients to realize that, hey, I'm in a safe space. Any doctor that I go with on this platform, I'm going to be in safe hands. And that piece of trust and transparency is really the ethos when it comes to getting these patients the care that they need without having to worry if they're going to the right doctor.
Well, and you bring up a great point there that I want to talk about too, because you brought it up in the beginning, and it's that crown down concept, right? So the prosthetically driven treatment. And when you're thinking about that and you have that mindset in full arch, that's what patients are coming in for. If they're thinking about full arch treatment, they're coming in for their brand new smile. They're not coming in for 17 dental codes. And that whole concept of the nickel and diming, I think is the way that you put it. That's something that, presenting them with, this is what's going to take to get you where you are today to that brand new smile. Whether that's 4 implants or 6 implants, whether it's this or that, and it's a simple, straightforward all on X case, or it's a complex case because you have limited bone left because of X, Y, or Z. Having those two options, straightforward, all in pricing, whatever it's going to take to get you there, that's what we're going to do to accomplish that goal. And that's that same crown down concept, prosthetically driven. And that's what you're talking about. That's what you're presenting to the patient. Now, certainly on the back end and whatever PMS system, practice management system you're using, right? The codes go in, whatever that looks like, that's fine. But patient facing, and then you talked about it, right? Because the patient engagement, that patient experience is built foundationally on trust. And that is what anybody that I know, all of my fellow consultants, all of my fellow coaches, everybody that I know that's in full arch that really is patient centric and patient focused, knows that it's all built on a foundation of trust. If you do not make a connection with the patient and it's built on trust, you do not move, they don't move forward. It has not, I don't want to say it has nothing to do with the product, but it's not product focused. It's patient focused. And it's all about the motivation, the why behind the what that gets them today to do something about their oral health, which is in very poor condition if they are a full arch candidate. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah, and I love that point that you bring up about how, we're, we're not going to be talking about them, or a full arch doctor, may want to talk about, the material of the titanium and, the angulation of the implants, because that's what excites them, the surgery and, the materials and doing the dentistry, that's what excites them. But the patient who, likely has not been to the dentist in a long time, they don't necessarily want to hear about the configuration of the dental implants and the kind of abutments that they're going to use and the material. Like you said, they want to hear, am I going to be able to bite into a steak? Am I going to be able to, smile again, right? These are the kind of outcomes that we want to sell. So that's a point that I like to bring up. And this is kind of a little thesis I'm developing. I wrote an article about this on the Toothsome blog, is about this kind of framework that I have that I call the two-patient model, which is very applicable in full arch, where if you think about it, from my background, I went to dental school, residency, they teach us this kind of traditional model of dentistry, which is very much preventative care, where, the patients, they come every 6 months, they come and get their cleaning, they get an exam, and if there's a filling or a tooth needs to come out or, something needs to be done, they get that done. And that is how all of dentistry has been going on like that for many, many years. Now, if you actually look into the data and you see, what is the dental utilization rate in the United States, the ADA has data from 2017 that found that actually only 40% of patients actually saw a dentist in the United States in 1 year. So these patients, or this kind of category of patients, I call them subscribers. These are like, if you, in the tech world, right, subscribers, non-subscribers, but these are patients who believe in dentistry, right? They believe in preventative dentistry. They go to the dentist every 6 months. It's interesting because those are the patients who, for example, if they do need a full arch, these are going to be your referral type of patients, right? These are going to be the patients that we source from the existing patient pool from dental offices, or for specialists, these are the patients that are getting referred from their general dentists. But going back to that statistic, 40% of patients actually went to the dentist in the past year. Well, what about the other 60%, right? Who are those? Who are those people? I assign them as non-subscribers, right? Non-subscribers. These are patients who they don't really believe in preventative dentistry, right? Whenever there's a toothache, they maybe go in just during that time. And these are patients who are already not very familiar with dentistry. They're perhaps not comfortable with dentists. Perhaps they don't even trust dentists as much. And now we're telling them, hey, you need, these 50 codes, right? Something doesn't add up, right? So the idea is that, with Toothsome and full arch in general, we need to approach these patients in a way where we say, hey, we're going to get you into a fixed set of teeth. You're going to be able to smile. You're going to be able to eat that steak. And this is what's going to cost you, right? So we have to treat them differently. We have to meet them where they are. These aren't patients that have been going to the dentist religiously for the past 20 years. And that's what I call the two-patient model, because the statistics show that there's actually a lot of patients out there that don't go to the dentist. And those are the patients we're primarily trying to serve with Toothsome.
Yeah, I love that, and I appreciate you sharing that. Well, Dr. Samy, this is the point of the program where all of my guests that come on the Tooth Sleuth podcast play a little something called What the Sleuth is Going On. So it's rapid fire questions, 3 of them. I want your very first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready to play?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. What's the worst bad breath you've ever encountered?
So, I don't know if you've ever had an oral surgeon on the podcast, but I could probably tell you that the worst was from a dental abscess that was drained in the operating room. And I won't go into details, but I think we could all say that was that's. I think I take the cake on that one.
If anyone's ever been in an operatory when a dental abscess has been, yes, my face is cringing with a big grin on it. So, yeah, thanks for reminding me of that moment. It's been a while since
rapid fire, man. You get the truth.
All right,
you get the truth.
Question number 2: if you could change one thing about your smile, what would it be?
So I know this is rapid fire, but I'm going to tell a little story. I actually had braces as a kid. Didn't wear my retainer, so don't do that. Had crowding in my lower front teeth. And in dental school, I was like, hey, I want to fix this. I had a lot of crowding. So the way that the ortho resident, fantastic doc, Dr. Alcarso, fantastic doc, he said, okay, the easiest way to do this is to take out one of your incisors, one of my lower teeth. He said, or you take out one of your premolars. Let's talk about it. And I said, okay, let's do the premolar one. And he said, yeah, you got to get it taken out. Go talk to the oral surgery guys. And I went into the clinic. I told them the situation, and I took out my own tooth. Actually, my friend numbed me up, took it out, and that was what I wanted to change about my smile. But numbed it up, took it out, got the braces, no issues. So that was the one thing I wanted to change.
You took out your own tooth. You didn't trust any of your colleagues. All right, so anyone who knows Dr. Samy or meets him, now I just learned a little bit more about you that I didn't know before. That there's some trust issues there. I'm just going to say it. All of my guests have now heard it. We're not editing that part out. That's all.
True story.
Question number 3. Question number 3. If you could go back and be the inventor of any dental product, no, you can't choose your own, which one would you choose and why?
Oh man, I'd probably say the CBCT machine. I think that on an imaging standpoint, that innovation has changed dental. That was like a 0 to 1 moment when it comes to dentistry, not just for dental implants, but endo, oral surgery, perio. I think that would have been just the most rewarding experience to be able to make such an impact like that on the dental industry.
Huge game changer. I was just speaking with somebody earlier today, and we were talking about what CBCT was like in a dental practice, full arch dental practice in the mid 2000s, and what it was like. Those of us who saw them were like, "Oh, you have a CBCT," and now in 2023, it's like, meh. Everybody's got one of those. If you're doing full arch, you have to. So it's kind of funny. Like from the time I got into dental to the now,
yeah, we take it for granted.
Things have changed, but I love that. Yes, totally do. But it's critical to have, especially when you're dealing with the more advanced procedures. I agree. All right. Well, in the last few minutes, Dr. Samy, I want to respect your time and all my listeners' time. Is there anything I haven't asked you or that you'd like to share with my listening audience?
No, not at all. I mean, I'll say that, if you're a general dentist listening and you're doing a lot of dental implants, check us out at toothsome.io, and we could definitely chat some more.
Perfect. Well, that gave me the last question lead and of how to get a hold of you for sure. We'll make sure that contact information gets in our show notes. Dr. Samy, thank you so much for being a guest on the Tooth Sleuth podcast. It's been a true pleasure, my friend.